Something I want to wonder at is Celtic otherworldly encounters and how they always seem to generally, at least from what I've understood, age people. It seemed to, they come back and the world they knew was gone, and either they can be aged quickly from that and die, or they just live lost in a world that's not their own. And I wonder if that's some sort of commentary on what it's like to seek knowledge, or what it's like to seek understanding, or a source, if you will. It doesn't, like, something that's other, and seeking it, and in that you can find yourself aged by it. Like, it physically can age you, and I've started to realize this myself. Instead of saying youthful, I feel aged by every time I delve into mythology and stuff like that, and stories. It seems to take from me something, so it's a give and a take thing. And I wonder if we can connect that to that sense of exploring the imagination, and something that we were really keen on discovering, which was you go into the imagination and you pull from it the unmanifested and leave in there some sort of semblance of self, and that's the aging process. Maybe perhaps this is why, like I said, in those old stories, we see them aged or come back and be in a different realm, or in a different, not realm, time. Like everyone they know is dead and stuff like that. Perhaps that's the reasoning why it can feel that way when you're doing this, because it's, I can only think of the word, it's a commentary, but I'm sure there's a smarter word to use there, but in my mind it's just a representation of what it can be like to search through the other, another place, and how it can truly affect you in many different ways. Something that, again, this is only drawn from my own experience, but man, I wish I could ask fucking people about this shit and see what people think, because I feel like I'm coming up with this shit in a closet, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of hanging out in here, and I got all this stuff, and like, I don't know what to fucking do with it, and I'm just confused by it. I don't know. But in a general sense, it just makes sense to me. It does. You know, the way that I can understand it, I can't not feel that way, because it's just through the lived experience of my life, and in different ways that I have interpreted things that happened around me, just based on a grand scope of vague cultural understanding, being that I grew up in, an American fucking place where culture is very, to me, phony. I'm not saying it is, but that's just how it comes at me. I don't like it. And so searching through another culture, one that's born from heritage and ancestry, that's where I find the meaning inside of where I'm coming from. Like kind of how Celtic stuff works. It's like, no, it's inspired by it. It's inspired by that act. And inside of inspiring that act, it's created some sense of understanding, one that's melted with the belief system that I've created for my own life based on the things that I've interacted with, as well as things that have a calling to, like, from in my ancestry or whatever. That I don't know how it truly works, but I do know that the things that I've always tried to do was something that reached out to me and gave me some sort of guidance, and I needed this guidance. And all along the way within the story that I make, it's affected me in many different ways, but I often wonder at just how it could envelop itself into its own understanding, in that which I place myself into, like another realm. And in that other realm, maybe, again, as I say, this place that kind of ages you, you could say, or kind of time goes away in a sense, and the world around you falls to, it's the normal flow of time, while you yourself are frozen in it. That's kind of what it feels like to be faced with different understandings that are different than anything you've ever heard of, or anything you've ever experienced or felt in your life. It's not something you can quantify in a vast scope of just, if you put the right words together. I think it's more of just a a feeling of expression inside of this place that exists. And in that existing place, I can wonder at many different aspects of what does it mean inside of the experience that I have that's so far separate. I've never been to the what I consider home. Never been to Great Britain, as we call it, Ireland. I've never gotten that chance, but that's where I come from. I know that. I know that for a fact. That's where I come from. I mean, my last name's fucking Baker. You know what I mean? Like, that's a part of me. And I know that the things that I feel are those deep stories that lie within, because that's my ancestry that far away across the fucking ocean. And I seek to return so hard, like, just it's in my fiber, my being. I just want to go home. It feels like it's all I ever feel. I just want to go home. But there's a negative side to all this, and the negative side is because I'm an American, because I'm Anglo, if you want to say that, even though I don't identify that way. I'm not going to be taken seriously in anything I would explore when it comes to Celtic anything. Even though it's in my fucking blood. It's in my fucking blood. It doesn't mean shit. And in some ways, I attach that to the story of the Milesians. I know that that's what they would consider like the modern Irish, but the Tuatha Dé Danann and then the Milesians. When they fought, they realized they were the same. They came from the same place, but still they fought anyway. And I kind of feel like that. It's like, except I'm not invading, you know. But in a sense, I am. And so it's not. I'm not saying it's a prophetic thing. But my comparison is saying, like, that's how I would view it. It's like, I'm just from the same fucking place as you. I just happen to live way over here and spent 200 years of my life, well, my ancestors, in this new country. But we came from there, so I don't want to hear anything. Just because I wasn't born on that soil. It doesn't mean it doesn't beat in my heart, you know? Because a lot of the times when we look at how it feels in America, at least according to me and the people I speak to. This is not the encompassing how everyone feels, but it just feels like it's so dead, so phony. It's missing something. And it's Protestantism and fucking Americana, as they say, or whatever you want to identify as American culture. Like, it's just so stale. It's so capitalistic, it's so materialistic and boring, and there's no great source to it. And well, American muscle cars and blue jeans and fucking Western music and country and rock and roll and blues. That's all great and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, I went through those things and they don't mean anything to me. They're interesting, they're cool. I can respect the artistry of what it took and why people do it, and I respect and see what they're doing it for, but to me it doesn't mean anything. Nor does the history of the nation that I come from. That doesn't mean anything to me. Like, it's interesting, it's great, and I'm happy that they felt that they were fighting tyranny. If indeed the stories are true, then okay, congratulations, but in some sense it just doesn't mean that much to me. I can only glean something from an echo. You know, the Americans fighting against the tyranny of the British, and it's like, well, the only reason I could find any positive in that is because I can see a bit of Irish in that, a bit of Scottish and Welsh. You know, so there's a part of me that's like, okay, like, that's all I can identify in it. You know, we're fighting this sort of Germanic invasion, if you will, you know, Anglo-Saxon shit. But then there's that other part. Well, my last name is Baker, you know? Like, that's an Anglo-Saxon name, if I've ever heard one. It's very common, a simple one. You know where I come from. I mean, I come from East Anglia, that part of my heritage. So that part of me's got that in it. Somehow, it's not in my DNA, but it is in my name. But, like, none of the American stuff means anything to me, and I've always felt a kinship to everything, what I always consider at home. You know, in Wales, Ireland, and Scotland, like those are three totally separate places with three separate histories. But you go far enough back, we can find unison in anything. You know, source. People that had something similar, even if it was fractal tribes, at least, well, the reason that they are tribes is because they're all one people. In many different senses. The farther back you go, the smaller the road gets. And I just find, I don't know, that's where I'm at. That's what I'm looking for. And so everything I do is based on Celtic stuff, but it's got this different flair to it. It's got this different, like appeal or story. Or when I talk about the other world in my stories, I'm sure someone that's a scholar in the Celtic otherworlds in any sense would call bullshit on it, or, you know, say, oh, he's just, you know, he's taking advantage of it, or whatever the negatives could be of it. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what people would think, but I'm trying to draw only negative for this point, and that's okay, because to me, the other world is the place that which, when I close my eyes and I let myself be transported through this ritual that I've created, that's where I go. So it must be something. Can't just be nothing. And the words that I use, that I find this in, the imaginary and the other world, or the understanding of the forest of the mind, like they are indeed something that I accidentally came upon, but then when I looked at Celtic stuff, it was similar enough to that I was like, okay, so there's something going on here. And that's the biggest thing for me, because I never really sat down and studied Celtic anything. It's just curiosity met with a little bit of just skimming the idea of it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really sit down and like study for months anything. It's just I'll flip through a book that talks about Tuatha, or I'll flip through a book that talks about Awen. I'm not really like studying that difficultly. I just, when I do it, I'm finding, holy shit, I'm already basically doing this. I just had my words for it, but these words are great too. So in my mind, I'm like, I don't care what anyone says. We are getting to a source. This is in your DNA, and you can unlock it. And though if you read my books and you find that it's not exactly the way you thought it was for Taliesin and Cuchulainn, or Cuchulainn, however you say that, it doesn't exactly mirror those, so it's not necessarily Celtic. Like, maybe, but maybe this is also, and it's allowed to continue to go forward, inspired by the past. At least that's my hope. I don't know if it's true or not. I tell myself that, but I could be deadly wrong. But anyway, we should get back to it and see what comes from the day.